All right, we're rolling. Hello and welcome to the Kingdom Strength Podcast. I'm Troy, your host, and we have a very special guest today, Krystyan Lazarin. He is a absolute stud unit out there on the court. He is a sponsored tennis and pickleball athlete, and I am so excited to get into the conversation today, talking about all things racket sports, into training and recovery, injury prevention, things like that. So I'm very looking forward to the conversation today. Krystyan, thank you for being on the show.
Thanks for having me. I'm
Yeah,
excited to be out here.
yeah, for real. And I know it's going to be a lovely conversation. Before we get into the meat of the discussion, could you just tell the listeners a little bit about yourself?
Yeah, most people that know me as a racket sport person. So it's somehow related to tennis or pickleball. And actually now I've actually gotten into padel, which is like a third sport I've been playing pretty
I'm
competitive.
not familiar with that.
But we'll have to show you sometime. It's really fun. It's going to be the next wave coming after pick. Trust me, there's
Okay.
people being built already. You'll start hearing it. But
It's called what?
padel or
Padel.
paddle. Very
Okay.
big Spain in South America,
Okay.
Central America, but it's getting big here.
Interesting.
I just played this morning actually.
No way. Okay.
But yeah, so everyone knows me as like you play tennis or you play pickleball or something like that in some respect. Kind of what's defined me and pretty much my friend circles from that. But yeah, came from Corpus, little bitty Corpus, South Texas, and in Austin, lived in Dallas, and now I'm in Fort Worth.
Mm-hmm. And from my understanding, is the sport has taken you different places, so that's pretty cool.
Yes. Yeah. I know most people don't know. Like I came from a pretty humble beginning with no one in my family really into sports. No one in my family really traveled or been on a plane even to this day. Yeah. So tennis was the initial sport that really opened the doors, and that kind of opened the doors for the other ones. But tennis is still my main focus and my first love.
Yeah, yeah. Speaking of that, how'd you get into tennis in the first place?
Yeah, growing up, there's six of us siblings, but my older brother, we're the closest in age, so we're 2 years apart. And luckily, we grew up before the whole tech phase came in with cell phones, and so we were pretty wild monkeys growing up. So luckily,
You
we
had to go
grew up.
outside and actually do things, huh?
Yeah, we actually like used I look back and we had the craziest imaginations, and we would make up games and, be outside climbing trees and riding scooters and skateboards and making up ramps and skinning our knees. And, luckily we were outside. So we were pretty active. We had a lot of energy, but we were asthmatic. So our mom was very kind of protective and hovering, and she never liked us to run too much or be in sports or, we had the inhalers and we did the breathing treatments. I personally don't think I needed it. I felt like it was more like preventative. Like, here, take a breathing treatment. And I'm sitting there at the living room with my treatment. But we never had asthma attacks or anything.
Mhm.
So yeah, so we were actually kept from sports for a long time, even though we wanted to do sports.
Mhm.
And my best friend in middle school played tennis, and I begged to play tennis, and my mom would not let me. And then high school came around. So believe it or not, I actually had not was a late bloomer. I did not grow up as a little kid playing tennis. So it wasn't until high school. And at that time you needed PE credit. And so I told my mom, like, hey, let me just do tennis. I needed PE credit regardless. So that's how I was able to get into it. And I don't know, it's crazy. I just kind of got the tennis bug, and I was addicted to it, and I ended up just loving the sport. I was actually last on our JV team. Had only played once in my life. I had a Walmart racket and basketball shoes, and luckily our team was small enough that there was no one cut. So I was last on the team, did not know how to keep score, had no lessons. So it was literally like muscle memory, whatever I thought, frying pan grit probably. But yeah, that's why I got into it. And then I just loved it. And I would go to every practice, and my coach would have free training in the summer. So, we couldn't afford lessons or country club squads. And so I would go to any opportunity I could. And so I would just go out there and play all day and never got tired. And actually, during my sophomore year, a parent of one of my teammates was like, hey, there's this nonprofit program called Tennis Success. You should check it out. I think based on your zip code and in the area, and we lived in the area. My mom was a single mom for a long time. So, we were all government housing, food stamps, so we didn't really have much. Tennis was like, hey, we can't afford that.
Mhm.
This nonprofit I would go to practice. They would pick me up. It was all free, and I would play tennis. And yeah, it got me finally, I think maybe a year in, I got some like actual rackets that weren't Walmart rackets.
Nice, nice.
Real rackets. But yeah, that kind of was what introduced me to the sport. And then I started learning like, hey, I had the heart for the game. I had the passion for it. And I started beating kids that actually were all decked out with matching clothes and the newest racket. And I had the drive, I could push myself and I would just be scrappy on the court. And then I just got better and better and better. And, by the next year I was on the varsity and it's a lot more depth to the story, but in a
Mhm,
nutshell, that's kind of how I got introduced to it. And it kind of traded off because then academically, all the smart kids were in tennis. So I did whatever they did. And then
mhm.
literally tennis is what got me to go to college because
Nice.
by the time into junior year, senior year rolled around and everyone was like, hey, time to go to college and apply. I was like top 5% in my class, only because I would get report card money. And so I would get straight A's and use that money to pay for not tennis lessons, tennis tournaments or
Mhm,
equipment.
mhm.
So in my head, I'm thinking tennis, get straight A's, get $70, use that money, pay for tournaments, and then this nonprofit would take us and travel, all over Texas, get rankings and all that.
Gotcha.
But yeah, so then it was like, hey, you're top 5%, you're Hispanic, you can go wherever you want. And so that's what got me I went to UT but again, it was just, I was doing what my tennis friends did because that was my circle and they were all valedictorian, salutatorian. So
Mhm.
again, it
Did you
really
play at
it
UT?
opened my doors, opened the doors for me to play.
Yeah, no, definitely. Well, what a blessing. What a
Yeah.
blessing. Did you play tennis at UT?
I did. Well, so I went on an academic scholarship, and
Mhm.
then when I went there, I didn't know anything. Like I didn't know about sports, tennis there, and when I first went, I was like, okay, I'm just gonna do like intramurals. Thinking like I didn't know what it was, so I did it, and then it was like a joke. Okay, that's kind of mean. I shouldn't say it's a joke, but it was more like it was just people like for fun, like like patty cake in the
Yeah, yeah,
racket.
yeah.
And so then they had this club team, and I was like, oh, there's tryouts for it, and had some friends on it. And they're like, yeah, like we went to state. And, one of my friends, she was a like biomedical engineer and she played junior US Open but she was focused on academics. So she didn't want to play for the team. So she did club. And then our number one guy who played like junior Davis Cup for Costa Rica. It was really
Mhm,
competitive. And so I played that and went to nationals 2 years and we have tryouts and we got to represent this team. So it was fun. It was really fun to meet all those people and they're like closest friends now. And it was great.
Like, yeah, what was your favorite part about that season of life?
The camaraderie, the
Yeah.
teammates. I mean,
Yeah,
I
yeah,
have all the memories of, like, eating late night junk food and winning together as a
yeah, yeah,
team,
yeah.
the road trips, I think that was actually the first time I'd been on a plane was, again,
Oh,
tennis
really?
opened that door, so I
Yeah,
got to
yeah,
go
yeah.
for the first time, and then again, it's college, because I went to college and I never had been to a concert, never been to a football game, never had been to a baseball game, just, very sheltered, this
Mhm,
bubble of a lifestyle. So it just again, it just opened all these opportunities. And then even after college, I traveling the world and still played competitively. And whether it was playing a
mhm,
tournament or volunteering, because I learned the sport through people giving back to me through the
mhm.
nonprofit. So I,
Good.
overseas and taught programs to give back to others. So it was
Yeah,
great. It's a great full
that's amazing.
circle moment.
Yeah, full circle indeed.
Yeah.
Yeah, I'll ask you about that in a minute.
Okay.
Before we do, I would love to hear about the process from kind of being last on the JV team into playing collegiate tennis, you know what I mean? Like, what was it like putting in that work and from your perspective, the effort and diligence that it takes to, to get to high competition in high level tennis? Like, what was that experience for you, and what sort of insight would you give to someone listening, or maybe someone that would be seeking to do a similar thing as you did, right?
Yeah, I mean, looking back, I like I said, tennis, I mean, sports in general was just foreign in my family.
Mhm,
My family has a history of, high blood pressure and heart disease,
mhm.
obesity. And so it was, but again, luckily, like I said, I don't think if me and my brother were in that era where if we were on digital devices, we probably would have not been active. So luckily we had a lot of energy and we were very athletic as kids. And, I remember again, this was before YouTube and everything. So as I was, 13, 14, we had the VHSs that you would put in to record. So I would buy these recorded VHSs blanks. And then obviously at the time, I didn't know about Tennis Channel. So I only had the 4 Grand Slams that would go on 4 times a year, and I would
Mhm.
record matches on those blank VHSs and then look back, try to pause it to try to learn technique, because again, there's no YouTube at the time to tell you things.
Mhm.
And so I would pause it and I broke light bulbs in the ceiling from trying to practice my serve. I dented my garage door from trying
Mhm.
to, rally on it. We lived near a middle school, so I would walk a few blocks to this middle school and hit on the wall by myself. I mean, so I look back and I'm like, wow, I really had a drive. Like, I really loved it. I mean, I had that passion for it. And again, I used to compare myself to all the other kids to be like, I'm in basketball shoes and I have these trash rackets that, are $20 at Walmart. And so I used to compare myself and I had to get over that aspect
Mhm.
of, it wasn't just the equipment, but I realized there were the kids that were forced to play or their parents wanted them to play versus someone like me who actually my parents could care less if I played or not. It was all my self drive.
Mhm.
And that's when I learned I was competitive by nature in anything. I mean, I knew I was competitive in video games and board games, but I just, I'm very stubborn and steadfast if I put my mind to something. So I just, really wanted to get better at tennis. I would just any opportunity I could play. But yeah, whenever it got to a more advanced level, I knew you've met me. I'm not tall. I knew I was going to have a big serve. I wasn't going to be a powerful person. So I guess kind of segueing into eventually the fitness and the recovery part is I knew my weapon was going to be my speed and my
Mhm.
stamina.
Mhm.
So I remember even when I was first playing, my coaches would be like, "We love your game. You don't miss, but you don't move the ball around. You hit it straight to your opponent down the middle of the court." And that's because I had never had lessons. So I didn't know how to hit an angle. I in my head, my game plan was just don't miss. Just get the ball
Mhm.
back. So I would just grind and hit 30 balls if I had to. And just in my head was like, don't miss. So I learned to just not I didn't want to make any errors. And it's funny,
Mhm.
ironically now my whole game is off angles and just changing up the ball, technique and playing very strategic, which I could
Mhm.
not do then. So I look
Mhm.
back and I'm kind of self-taught myself that feel. Like you can't really teach that feel to a lot of players. But yeah, I would tell people that want to, get to the higher level in whatever sport, even if it's not sports, just whatever they want to do. A lot of it I realized was mental. And
Mhm.
a big part of it was also growing up the way we grew up. There was kind of this glass ceiling of that's not for people like us, or we can't do that. Like, you
Mhm.
know, and again, I don't blame my family. They only knew what they knew at the time. They could only teach what they knew and what they dealt with growing up in their own backgrounds. So, and I think it was a protection thing for us to be taught that way. But it wasn't really until I started winning and had that self belief that it kind of set the ball rolling. And I also had applied. I was like, wow, if I have these trash equipment and I can beat these kids with just my will, then I applied that to the classroom too. And I was like, well, that idea is good. Well, why can't I go somewhere like that? And
Yeah.
it manifested into all aspects of my life. And then even tenfold when I went to college, because now I'm in a new environment by myself. It was the scariest thing I'd ever did, but no one there knew me, knew my background, knew where I came from, knew my socioeconomic status. And so
Mhm.
there was no expectation or preset judgment. And so I
Mhm.
met people the first time that were like, you can do whatever you want. Like, you're at a fresh start, you're at a college, you're in a new city, like,
Mhm.
don't hold yourself back. And
Mhm.
again, I kind of manifested that and translated into every part of my life, socially, athletically, academically, spiritually, like everything. It's like, okay, like no one knows me here.
Yeah.
I can do whatever. And then I had to get disciplined. Obviously, there's that discipline when you're competing. But I think a big thing was I had that fire. I was so competitive. I always tell people I hate losing more than I love winning. Rather, I just hate losing. I just hate losing. And which is scary. And I have to kind of contain it because everyone's like, "You're so nice. You're the nicest person." I'm like, "No, you haven't seen me lose." Like, I'll be confident. I'm a sore loser. I'm a sore loser. Like when I lose, I would like, no one talk to me. I'm gonna go sit in the corner and I'm gonna, pig out later and I'm gonna just eat junk food. I don't care if I get sick from it. And so I'm getting better at it. I've gotten better. But
Mhm.
yeah, I mean,
What has kind of prompted that shift or getting better? Is that something you've acknowledged that, hey, maybe that's not the most productive mindset, or
yeah.
what's the thoughts
Now
there?
Now there's more resources, and I've seen and listened to other people and players, and you hear, they say tennis is like 75% mental and 25% physical. I mean, people change the percentage, but they always say mental's more part of it, especially, because
Yeah.
tennis is one of those few sports. I mean, unless you're in doubles, but one of the few sports where it's just you out there. It's you in yourself. There's no on-court coaching or, even in high school. I mean, a little bit, but not really. I mean, in the middle of a game, they're not going to stop the point and tell you what to do. So it's really a mental battle with yourself. And a lot of it comes from experience. I mean, there's so many matches I remember and I knew it was my mindset. Either I went in there thinking I couldn't win, or I got so upset because of a shot I hit out and I didn't let it go, or someone cheated me and I kept it angrily inside me, or someone pegged me with the ball and I got pissed. And, it's these mental battles you have to deal with yourself. And that's the one thing in the sport is you have to just have short-term memory and be like, okay, I
Hmm.
can't change it. All I can do is it's how I react to it, and
Hmm.
especially my game being a very grinding game where I'm not blasting winners and I'm just not missing. What tends to happen is my opponent loses because I don't miss. One of us has to either hit it out or in the net or hit a winner. I'm not going to hit a winner, and if they're not hitting winners, they're making the errors, which in their brain they translate to it's their fault. They're messing up. I have no impact because they're missing all the balls. But
Hmm.
really, it's me playing my style where I'm not going to miss. But they internalize it. So I tend to frustrate a lot of people
Hmm.
because they're thinking, how did I lose to this guy? He hit no winners on me and I hit everything out or in the net. It's because, well, I'm not missing. One of us is going to miss,
Hmm.
you
Hmm.
know? And so I would see a lot of my opponents would lose because they get frustrated. And obviously
Hmm.
that me up seeing how they're reacting. And so I was like, okay, I don't want that to happen to me. I don't want to give away my emotions to my opponent. And then
Hmm.
the other second thing is probably once I got sponsored at the time, I think I was like number one in Texas in singles, doubles, and mixed at the same time. And and I was a teaching pro at the time. So I was teaching at a facility and it was a very good gig where they were like, hey, teach when you can. And when you have tournaments, you can go travel, just shout out to us as the facility where you're at. And they would let me play tournaments. And Mark Gonzalez was my Yonix rep at the time. And crazy enough, he's from Corpus. I'm from Corpus. So there was that connection there. He now
Hmm.
lives in outside of Austin, Georgetown, I think. And he grew up in the same house that I grew up, that my mom still lives at to this day. He grew up in that same address with his
Wow.
parents. I mean, just small world, which we didn't well, like 3 years ago, maybe. I was at the US Open in New York, and there was a Yonix event in New York that I went to, a player party, or it was like to start a kickoff for the US Open. And I actually talked to him, and we had known each other already for like over 10 years. And then I brought it up and he's like, no way. And he said the address. And I said, that's my address.
That's
My mom is
crazy.
still there. And it was just crazy. But yeah, so then being sponsored, obviously you could conduct yourself in a certain way because you're playing for more than yourself.
Hmm.
Yes, you play with a team, but it's a little more different when there's a sponsor behind you backing you. Cause then you're like, okay, I can't look like a jerk or a douchebag on the court, cause then no one's going to want to, partner
Yeah, if
with you.
he's representing the brand, yeah.
Yeah. So that also was a big proponent to me being like, okay, how do I want to represent myself in this brand and be a good ambassador for them? And so I was like, okay, don't look like a brat on the court anymore.
Yeah, so it sounds like it was kind of a shift between, okay, you're trying to manage your own emotions so you don't get flustered and keeping your head in the game. And it's interesting that you've noticed your opponents, you kind of unintentionally perhaps fluster them because you're just not missing, but that's just part of your game style, right? So I think it's good you've made that acknowledgement. Hey, like when I get upset or frustrated, it ruins the game, and that's across all sports. If you're thinking about errors, you're more likely to make an error, right? So it's good to keep your mind on the game, stay focused, and again, if something happens, just water off your back. You're just moving
Yeah,
on,
I'm
and I
stuck.
like the piece too with representing the yeah, literally represent the brand and and wanting to be a good ambassador. I think that's a noble thing as well.
I've had matches where I've made grown men cry playing me. It's ridiculous. Like I've seen tantrums on the court, like literally on their back, kicking their
Hey.
feet, banging. I mean, I played someone and they banged their head with the racket and they punched their strings too, and then their knuckles were bleeding. I mean, there's
Oh,
levels to
jeez.
frustration, and I'm like, okay, like for me, I'm like that's a win-win, and I'm just gonna like, makes me feel pumps me up, but I'm like, okay, I don't
Hmm.
want to get to that point. I
Yeah,
felt
no,
like that,
totally.
but I'm like, okay, stay cool, stay cool.
Stay cool, stay cool. Yes,
Yeah.
sir. So tell me a little more about Yonix. I know they reached out, relationship formed. You're an ambassador for them. How's that relationship been, and what's it kind of look like to be a brand ambassador for the company there?
It's been such a blessing, and it's funny because it's like when I look back at the timeline of my life I've had so far, it's funny how things have fallen into place because I actually loved Yonix before I even knew I was gonna get sponsored. Like, I never thought I would get sponsored at all by anybody,
Hmm.
but I actually had liked the brand and was actually using it before they even approached me.
Hmm.
There was in between moment where when I was teaching, I had got into a contract that my director at the time had put me into without my knowledge. And it was this brand. I'm not going to say what it is, but it was a brand I did not like. And I was like, "Ugh, of all the brands, I don't want to sign with them." And I had Yonix before that. And then luckily it ended. It was like a year. And I mean, it was still cool. I mean, they gave me free stuff for that brand, but I just, I didn't feel connected with it. And
Hmm.
so it was like when that ended, it just happened at that time that then my director of Rackets at the time was at a conference and Mark, the Yonix rep, was there and approached him. And we kind of knew each other through social media. And
Hmm.
he's like, "Hey, would Christian be interested?" I was like, "Heck yeah." So yeah, it's been great. I really feel like I have a little leg up because me and Mark have that personal connection of, we know the
Hmm.
same circle, we grew up in the same city, same house. So he's been really great taking care of me. Like, hey, I have a clay tournament. Okay, let me send you some clay shoes in the mail. Go, good luck. You know,
Hmm.
uh, hey, I need this. Whatever I need. They give me grips. They give me socks. They give me hats. They give me. I literally have a dresser full, and it can barely close, and it's all of Yonex really spoiled me a lot, from wristband to sweaters to vests to, the only thing is probably underwear I don't have from them. I don't even think they make underwear. Everything else, they've got me covered.
Yeah.
It's been great. I mean, and at the time when I first partnered with them, kind of social media was in its infancy and Instagram and I was real big into it and so I kind of really helped push like the collaborations and tagging paid partnerships
Hmm.
and that's kind of other companies like, hey, we love how you represent Yonex, we love your photos, and so people, my Instagram handle is actually my first initial K Yonex, like, it's I'm that invested in them that even my handle has Yonex in it
Hmm.
because it's really defined me and shaped me, and I love what they stand for. I love the brand. It's a Japanese-based company. They're really big on quality. It's just the precision. I mean, everything's great about it. I love what they represent. I love they treat their players well. I mean, they do. They even got me into pickleball. So for a few years, I was sponsored in both sports through Yonex with them.
Hmm.
I love to represent them. They treat me well. It's great. I mean, we had calls. They've been very transparent, like letting me give input on ideas, what
Hmm.
I thought. Like pickleball, I was telling them, hey, you need a longer handle, for us two-handers in pickleball. And like a year later, they made one and they got the extra length on the
Okay.
handle.
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
Any running marketing events, they were very open to getting my feedback on what I thought, how I ran it. They liked my ideas.
Hmm.
I was able to speak to other ambassadors and let them know things I've done that worked for me that could help them. And
Hmm.
again, I've been to Indian Wells and they invite me to the party. They have a big young party. I've been multiple times to New York and they have a party with all the players on rooftops. It's great. They
Yeah.
treat me really well and I'm glad to be a part of them. I don't know what, 12, 13 years now, maybe I've been with them.
Okay. Dang. Yeah. Quite some time. So it
Yeah.
sounds like a solid company, solid mission, and producing some quality products. So
Very
if
grateful to have
anybody listening plays tennis or pickleball, Yonix is the brand to go with. I'm sure
that and they're
anyone in
big.
that world is fairly familiar with it, but I'm not because I don't really play tennis nor pickleball. I've done a couple intramural leagues myself, but that's mostly just the social aspect of it.
Yeah.
Parker University, the grad school I went to, they do an intramural league for pickleball, and I was notorious for just chatting with people as they walk by the court while we were playing. So it frustrated my partner at times with that, but
Focus, Troy,
that's okay.
focus.
Yeah, I know, right? I know. But hey, so you talk about brand ambassador being sponsored, this, that, the other, and I think it's a good time to bring up Stretch Zone. That's
Yes.
where you and I met. So you're an ambassador for them, and they provide passive stretching and it helps you kind of on the recovery side of things and staying mobile and getting the tissues ready for your performance that you're doing day in day out. So I would love to hear about your experience there, if you wouldn't mind sharing, and then kind of weaving that into what you do on a regular basis as far as recovery and injury prevention, things that you've implemented yourself throughout your years of playing the sport, and particularly as seasons have changed too. I mean, you're not that you're old by any means, but you're not the spry young chicken that you used to be in college, right? So I would love to hear about how that shifted for you, anything that's changed in your regimen, in your routine, and just to give some ideas for some listeners out there who might be in a similar boat and still wanting to engage in athletics and sport throughout their seasons of life.
Yeah, it definitely changes when you're no longer a spring chicken. Now I'm an age 10 or it's funny because, you hear from people that are like, "Oh, when you hit this age, you're gonna feel this and that," and did it, and I was just like, knock on wood, I've never broken anything or had anything very chronic,
Mhm.
surprisingly for how active I am. And, I used to
You
be the
take
one
care
all
of
my
yourself
friends
though.
knew me. Yes, you know, w- probably the last 10 years, I've really focused on my workouts being functional and mobility. But again, a big credit to that is stretch zone. I was so bad. I was one that never stretched. Even now, try to get on myself, but I mean, even looking back when I first started playing and played tournaments, I would just go on I mean, of course we have like our 5 minute warm up, but I wasn't one to like, I didn't know a dynamic warm up versus a static. I mean, I was just, again, I didn't grow up in a family of athletes. I didn't really have coaching. It was in high school. It's like, there's so many kids. No one's going to you're not going to single you out and be like, okay, this is, how you should properly be an athlete. We just went out there and played and they just like, just win. um, yeah, there wasn't really a wellness aspect to it and a preventative aspect. It took me I mean, I kinda had to learn on my own, and it wasn't till I was probably mid-20s till I really started to focus on that. And credit because I go to Stretch Zone, everyone's like, "Oh, you're so flexible," and this and that, and people think like, "Oh, I must stretch all the time." Before tennis, I was in gymnastics, and so I kinda have a leg up with the flexibility, and it's been good because it gives me benchmarks to know that I can still do that, like, can I touch the floor flat with my palms without bending my knees? Like, I get pissed if I realize, like, I'm losing that, so I make sure, like, little things like that or, like, sitting down and I can reach over and touch my toes, things that I
Mhm,
younger when I was very flexible, I try to make sure I'm not losing that because I'm like, "I used to be able to do that. I still wanna be able to do that."
mhm.
And I mean, I used to be able to like slide into the splits and hit a forehand, like on the run. And I mean, it was just, even in pickleball, I have done that before. And it was just crazy because and I didn't mean to. I was just, if I slipped, I just naturally was flexible. And I credit that to my speed. I mean, everything around that was the mobility part. And when I moved to Dallas, I think I first ran in a strip club. I think maybe I looked them up. I was in Addison at the time and I was going kind of regularly or I bought a package I had first done obviously my free demo. And it was with Jennifer. And then I think it was a next meeting I met Michelle. But they were both in the tennis world and
Mhm,
had the same circle of friends. And I think they started following me on social and kind of saw I had a following and how I was representing other brands. And they were very kind to extend the invitation to partnering up
mhm,
and be an ambassador. And I believe at the time they hadn't really done that with anyone. So we kind of looked at a
mhm,
contract together and what we could provide for each other. And it's maybe 4 years now, maybe I've still been with them. They've been very
mhm.
nice.
Yeah, Jen is awesome.
Yeah, Jen is amazing, and they've been so sweet to keep me on because I'm always all over. So
Mhm,
I've been as consistent because I try to, I'm always in different cities and going to different locations. So I've told them like, hey, like if you want to cut me loose, let me. And they're like, no, no, we love you, we love you. They're super nice.
yeah, yeah, yeah.
Yeah, Stretch Zone has really taught me how crucial and beneficial the mobility part and the flexibility and just the range of motion has been, not just in athletics, but just as a way of life. And I do credit.
Building the habit.
Yep.
Mm,
Yeah. built the habit. And again, seeing how important it is that, having a practitioner assisted stretch can really isolate more than doing it on your own and get a deeper stretch has been great. And it's reminded me like, okay, I need to, when I have a recovery day, do some stretching, do more stretching than I probably, do on my own. Like normally I would just be like, oh, 2 minutes, I'm good. But, you know, I can feel now when I haven't stretched or been to stretch zone, my body just feels tight. It doesn't feel as mobile, and I've been grateful to be able to share my platform and invite others to go to stretch zone. And I've had people go and they're like, wow, it's so good, whether it's for an injury or trying to test it out before they get some sort of surgery. But they've all said how amazing they feel
Hmm.
after going. And it was
Yeah.
just
Yeah.
one of those things that I was like, wow, I never heard of practitioner assisted stretching until a few
Yeah.
years ago, maybe after COVID or something. And I'm glad I found out and I'm glad I've stuck with it.
Yeah. I'm grateful I got to
Really been
meet
a
you
game
there.
changer.
Yeah. 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 It's something that is interesting because I've had people ask me about stretching, this, that, the other. There's so many different things out there in the ether about stretching itself. Oh, when to do this, when to do that, not doing static stretching before activity because, you get a little
Yeah.
bit of length to the structures within the muscle fiber itself. So that you produce less power because there's less of that cross bridging of the actin and myosin filaments. And then you're not able to produce power before the sport performance and activity when you really need to be quick and efficient. And there's so dynamic stretching a little bit more appropriate for before sport, but in your recovery sessions, like you're talking about, stretch zone, where you're actually getting more of a sustained stretch. It's a few seconds long. There's other ways to do it too with longer holds, but something that's fascinating to me is, like you're saying, a lot of people saw a lot of benefit from it, feeling better, more range of motion, more mobility. Stretch Zone actually did a research study, for the only stretch company that did a study to actually show, hey, what are the outcomes for the different groups, that control group that receive no stretching, and then they had different frequencies of stretching, 1 time a week, 2 times a week, 3 times a week, et cetera, et cetera. And yeah, awesome outcomes. I think it was specifically on the stretch zone protocol itself. However, no matter how you frame it, stretching is beneficial, and many people see benefit from it. And it was just kind of interesting as a clinician, and in my experience there's so many different mechanisms that could be at play when you're putting tension in different structures, taking joints through different ranges of motion. For example, it could be a joint-based dominant mechanism at play, and it's really truly the cranking on a joint that's producing some sort of input into the joint capsule that is helping the system have better proprioception or more motion there, or maybe like a nerve. You're doing a nerve tension maneuver, and then you're actually getting some application there. And in most cases, I think that's the most likely the case, or even myofascial tissue as well. That's where it's most likely viewed by the common public and people that are going, oh yeah, I'm here to stretch out my muscles, this, that, the other. So no matter how you frame it, no matter what mechanism is going on, whatever you subscribe to, or whatever the individual may be, the stretch zone provides passive stretching. You're increasing mobility, putting force through tissues, and increasing joint range of motion. So that's never a bad thing per se. And of course, they do their screening to rule out if there's any medical issues, this, that, the other. So they'll get you to where you need to be if you need to be at a clinic seeing another provider. But I was content with the way Jen went about it, and the whole team there, and I'm grateful that they're helping people out, helping people feel and move better. That's the name of the game. So anyway, I didn't anticipate going on that tangent about stretching, but thanks for listening, and thanks for being an ambassador for that brand. And I know they're doing some good work and in the community. So anyway, any more things come to mind as far as your regimen, your routine? I would love to hear also about kind of your training too, both now and kind of how that's developed throughout your time within the sport, as far as practicing. What your resistance training and cardiovascular training have looked like to help you prepare for the demands of tennis and pickleball.
Yeah, I actually have a pickleball money tournament this weekend in Carrollton. I'm doing singles, doubles, and mixed. So I'll be playing 3 days. And one of the things I wanted to highlight is, a lot of people, they see this pickleball boom and this trend, and you get so many injuries. Because a lot of people don't realize when you play pickleball, there's the kitchen 7 feet from the net. You can't go in there unless the ball's bounced. So you have this unnatural motion of your lower body being stationary and your upper body hinged and you're leaning forward, to swing at these balls. And so I try to tell people it's so crucial to, of course, have a good core strength for your lower back, but at the same time, that mobility, that flexibility, the stretching is, I feel like, even more crucial in the pickleball aspect, just because you're so low, the ball doesn't bounce as high, and a lot of people tend to bend at their back rather than their knees. And it's such, and you see a older demographic playing pickleball than, of course, tennis at a competitive level. But yeah, so you see a lot. I feel bad. I love people to learn the sport, but I always, if I ever teach somebody or show someone new the sport, I'm like, hey, make sure you probably warm up,
Hmm.
because pickleball is a lot of hinging. It's the lower back more than you would
Hmm.
tennis.
Yeah.
Uh,
Yeah.
which it,
So hinge work within a resistance training regimen ought to be beneficial,
yeah,
right? To
yeah,
load and
and
post your chain a little bit, get the like glutes
mhm.
to take some load, so it's not as much load on the low back.
Yeah, and, here in my apartment, luckily, I don't know if I mentioned to you, there's Canyon Ranch,
Hmm.
at the gym here, that I'm a member at, and it's just down the hall for me. But what I love about them, kind of a shout out to Canyon Ranch, but what I love about them is it's not just a gym, but it's a whole holistic venue for, wellness, just physically, mentally, recovery. So they actually have a full floor that is all vitality and recovery, which has
Mm-hmm.
been a game changer for me because I can go up there at any point when they're open, and, they have the lymphatic rollers, they have the sauna pod, they have the red light beds, they have the compression boots, they have the PEMF mat, they have the Dara goggles. Or not there. Well, they have Dara goggles for your temples, but they have the compression boots, and then they have this like a shift wave chair that helps reset your brain and your nervous system. And so they have all these modalities that, I found have been very crucial in my recovery.
Hmm.
They have these, what is it, like gravity chairs that warm up and lay back. And I mean, just to kind of reset your whole body. And then obviously the dry sauna, the wet sauna, the whirlpool. I mean, all those have been great tools that I didn't have before because I didn't have a gym with all that, especially it's such a convenience or it's just down the hall. But it's like this extra motivation of, oh yeah, I used to go wake up early if I knew I had a match or tournament, and I'd go to the gym and do some sort of warm up with resistance bands or cables, and, just kind of get my body ready for the match. But now I've put a lot more effort into the post-match recovery,
Hmm.
especially if I know I'm playing again the next day, because I tend to not feel it till I wake up, and then I'm like, "Wow, I didn't stretch, or I didn't recover." So, I would say the modality I use the most is the red light therapy. They have the full bed in the Vitality at Canyon Ranch, but I do have my own devices at home, so I'll use that. And of course, like the massage guns and the rolling drainage. And, so and then I also have my own TINS unit. So I use that too if I feel like I've something sore or something's tweaked. So I have all these tools, and sometimes I have more tools than I probably could use. Closet.
And I think that's a good point too. With say like you're training, you're on the court, you're doing your stuff in the gym, you're doing your resistance training, accessory cardiovascular training, however you frame your program and what you're doing and when the season is, this, that, the other. And of course, getting sleep and proper nutrition, those are going to be the biggest things from a recovery standpoint. And then all these modalities, they're a great cherry on top. And I think like you're talking about, it's just kind of been the putting you over the edge and really the last like 1-2% of having you feel optimized and ready to go for your next bout of training or competition. So especially from like a cellular healing standpoint with like the red light or the PEMF bed,
Yeah.
the pulse electric magnetic frequency. We have one of these at the clinic that I work at, Parker Performance Institute, and people love it. And it's just a great way to kind of add in some of the kind of cellular healing stuff, but you also have the red light. You have all these other things that are really good. But if you're not doing the things that are going to have more weight when it comes to general recovery, like from a tissue perspective, from a cognitive brain standpoint, the sleep, the nutrition, getting everything controlled from a inflammation standpoint. All that is going to come into play. Load management too, when it comes to recovery and being wise with how you structure your program. All that is important to consider. And I love how you're talking about them. I think we could have a podcast on modalities too. I've been looking more into some of this stuff too with the things I'm using at the clinic and the research behind it. It can be quite fascinating, and some of it's just like, shoot, I wouldn't hang my hat on some of these articles because they're pretty few and far between. And but you also go with what you see anecdotally with what the outcomes are as well. So I think that could be an interesting
Yeah.
discussion too, to kind of pull up some literature on various modalities and different ways to implement it into a program.
There's so many out there, and I feel like it's been exacerbated, of course, with social media and Instagram.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. And people are like putting so much weight on it, and you're like,
Yeah,
hey,
these
like,
these tools, and
yeah.
I think can be overwhelmed, or they can get caught up in trying like what's cool, and
Hmm.
and again, I mean, a lot of things you touched on, I'll try to answer them. So I guess like the training part it's different because sometimes I'm like, okay, I'm playing today, so I won't work out. But it depends if I'm going to like play 3 hours, and am I burning 2,500 calories? You know, i- do I have a tournament? I'm not going to, go hard the days before. And I've really tried to do a lot of strength training because it's so crucial. And I know I don't do enough of it. And so I tend to like, if I do like some sort of group class or fitness class, I excel in the stamina part. I can go for days. But then if it's some sort of strength training or like pull ups, or, I'm dying, my upper body is, I look stronger than I am upper body wise. But I've really tried to focus on making sure, like, I used to just, okay, it's down the hall. I'm going to go sign up for 2, 3 classes, group classes. But I've now tried to tailor it to quality workouts than quantity, you know, and is this specific group class going to benefit me somehow on the court in strength, speed, agility, explosiveness? Is it somehow functional for me in what I like to do, or is it helping me?
Hmm.
So I don't just go there to be like, okay, I feel fat. I need to just burn some calories. I'm just going to take this random class. Like, okay, let me do something that's going to benefit me in some aspect, and strengthening
Hmm.
something that will have some sort of benefit on the court, whether it's again speed, agility, explosiveness, or maybe injury prevention. Uh,
Hmm.
and so like I also had to mention, like, I do a lot of yoga, I do a lot of Pilates. So on like a recovery day, I'll try to do that. One of the things I was really bad about is I would overtrain, and I was so bad at taking a rest day. And luckily, now we have all these devices. So I have like this little Oura ring here
Hmm.
that tell me, and I have a Whoop, so all these things that I now track my metrics, my stress levels, my recovery, how far can I push myself?
Hmm.
And these devices, I think, if you know how to use them right, can be beneficial in terms of knowing when's a rest day versus when's a push day. Because I've gotten to the point where I've actually lowered my immune system so much because I was overtraining and I wasn't sleeping. And, the Oura ring would tell me, like, hey, you need to slow it down. Hey, your heart rate's elevated. Hey, your HRV is dropping. Like, your trends are off. Something's going on. And so I have had to tell myself to slow down and not, I used to wake up and I would do 4 classes back to back at the gym, from like 6 a.m. to 10, I would just do one class over, I would just, because again, I wasn't getting tired, but I would just be like, oh, it's going to help me. But then I'm like, okay, it's better to have a quality 45-minute. I could even probably burn more in a good 30-minute class than just trying to stretch it out for the heck of it, and, not really
Hmm.
thinking behind it. So I've tried to tailor it where I do something depending, again, am I playing that day? Am I not playing that? If I'm playing that day, then maybe in the evening I'll do some sort of stretch, or yoga, 30-minute, something a little more relaxed. And then if I know I don't have a tournament on the weekend, then I can push a little further and maybe do a little more strength training or intervals on the treadmill. But like you said, the last two to touch on is the sleep and the nutrition. Sleep, probably the last 5 years, has really been my priority. Not that I'm perfect at it every day, but I've really seen the benefits of it.
Hmm.
And especially with these smart trackers that I have now, to see, okay, am I eating too late at night? Am I waking up? Am I restful? And so I've made so many changes, like, okay, I have my blackout curtains. Okay, I have my temperature between 65 and 68.
Hmm.
Okay, I have my sleep mask. Okay, I have my hatch alarm that is not going to, abruptly wake me up. It's going to slowly rise and, not jolt me. I have an Oura ring to track me. I have a Whoop to track me. I have my weighted blanket. I have my little pillow between my knees or my pillow behind my pillow on my neck. And, I have my sleep sound that goes on and it helps me go to sleep. I have my red light blocking glasses or blue light blocking, sorry, my blue
Mhm.
light blocking glasses that I'll put on at night. And I'm still struggling to like, okay, don't do your doom scrolling, read, put the phone away, give
Mhm.
yourself some time to
Yep.
not, disrupt the melatonin produced in your head, from all these screen time. So
Yeah,
yeah,
all
it's
those are
been
good
great.
strategies.
Yeah, and you feel the difference. When I
Mhm.
sleep good, I feel good. And my devices will correlate that. If I have a bad score, I feel bad for the day. And so that's where I really swear by these devices because I do see a correlation between, okay, my score is good, I feel good. My score is bad, I feel like dirt. And so little things like that, I just would not know about, okay, eating too late, you know, staying up too late or having a consistent time of going to bed, keeping it consistent, not staying up late one night, it's just not.
Mhm. I think that's huge for a lot of
Yeah.
people to being consistent with what time you're
Yeah.
going to sleep, what time
Yep.
you're waking up, because I feel like that's pretty uncommon from at least the people that I work with and
Yeah.
talk to.
Yeah.
And, it's tough. It can be really tough depending on what's going on that day, but
Like,
I think that's
I
important
felt like
in
journaling
case.
to get
Mhm.
like clear your brain at night has been really beneficial if I do that.
Mhm.
No caffeine late at night is going to keep me up or alcohol or any of those little things. It's just like, okay, it's a lot, but if you can get it regimented, it makes a difference.
Mhm.
And then the nutrition part, again, I'm not a spring chicken. So now I'm like, before I could eat crap and I'd look like a stick. You just eat whatever, and calories just matter. And then now it's like, okay, if I don't eat well, it doesn't come off as easily. And, my body is going to look like an apple or SpongeBob shaped. I don't, have a little more. And I've tried to have the mindset of fuel. Food is fuel. And
Mhm.
not just what looks good or what tastes good, but is it actually fueling my body? And I've
Mhm.
had to change my mindset to think like, okay, is what I'm eating or what looks on this plate at all beneficial or nutrient dense for me in any
Mhm.
aspect?
Yeah.
Because it's so easy to get lost in like, oh, that looks good or that looks Instagram worthy, but there's no, nutrition in that, and I'm a big sugar addict, which is bad. And I'm trying to get off that because it's, my family, again, their history of diabetes. And, I don't want that. I don't, now there's all these links with sugar to Alzheimer's and they're calling it diabetes type 3, all these, just all these things that, I mean, we could go on a whole other subject about the food industry and processed
Yeah.
foods, and, the Western diet and all that. And again, it's almost like it's funny. I almost feel like life, in a sense, is this game in terms of, society and, learning to bypass all the things that are in front of you and actually educating yourself. Okay. And there's a trick to life. If you can figure out, okay, what's the real things to eat? What's the way to stay in shape? What's the way to sleep? Because I'm very big on like trying not to take anything over the counter or medications if I don't have to. I always tell people, okay, and I try to live it myself too. If I feel bad, sleep, diet, exercise in some aspect. Like do that first. See if I
Mhm.
can, heal whatever is going on. But it's hard because everything is thrown at your face. And it's like, okay, can you put those blinders on?
Yeah.
Dodge all these, goodies that are flashed in front of you that are like these quick fixes and
Mhm.
what is the conventional mainstream thing of what is being sold and shown in your face is like no, and I tell
Yeah.
people just try it because the proof is in the pudding is how you feel, and that's what I try to tell myself is like, okay, try not eating that or try doing this or try exercising and see how I feel. And then it's like, okay, yeah, it works for me, so why not? But it's like, it's hard because there's all these temptations of the wrong things that are being sold to cure, all these ailments that, and again, all those things, nutrition, diet, sleep. I mean, just it's so holistic in terms of your well-being, your happiness, your mental state, your social connection. I mean, there's a whole circle, I feel like, of these tools that, overall just enhance your quality of life. But it's been a while, especially for me growing up in a family that obviously, when you're just surviving, you're buying what you can, what's cheapest, living in those food deserts where you don't really have these farmers markets or these nutritional foods and you're just
Mhm.
living off whatever you can get for cheap, which is typically not the healthiest things. So I look back and I've come a long way of educating myself, trying to listen to the right people and having the right mentors that and seeing it, I'm glad that got introduced into the sport of tennis or just athletics in general because it opened the segue into more health and wellness and
Hmm.
just lifestyle choices.
Yeah, no, and I think you're on. I think you're cooking right now with a little monologue there. I think it's people love quick fixes. The next big thing I think that's just human nature and big and just very prevalent within the culture these days too. It's like, hey, what's going to get me to point A to point B the most convenient way, the least effort possible. And I think you're dead on when you said, hey, just do the big things well. It's going to take effort. It's going to take consistency. Sleep, diet, nutrition. It's the same old story, right? Nothing's new under the sun, and I think it's good to remember that. And I think that's very very relatable of what you're talking about right now. I think also very relatable was your approach you're talking about with the training too, where people get bogged down is following a specific program and wanting to do things perfect, cross every T, dot every I. And if you do have a specific goal, you ought to have a specific program, right, to hit said goal. That is very important. If you're trying to capitalize on a certain adaptation for you, like you were talking about with, strength might be something that you personally might need to work on, and it could be kind of generally building that capacity might help you on the court, especially when it comes to kind of that power output, transitioning the force from lower extremity to upper extremity in rotational sort of movements, and working on that strength, working on that power. So there's different periods of the year you might want to work on that and ways you might want to program it. But I love what you were saying about listening to how you're feeling as well, because everyone's in different seasons of life. Everyone responds to stresses and load and whether it's load in the gym, stress in the gym, or stress in everyday life, people respond differently, and the system definitely can take a beating. So I think having metrics like you're tracking and understanding, hey, I might not be able to hit this output on this day, so might have to pivot. I think it's okay to be free with how you're doing things and how you're programming, because not everyone's training for a particular match or event. It's okay. I think it's relatable to hear to just from a general perspective, like, hey, be consistent, go in and get something in, but it can adapt based on how you're feeling. Tracking things like with the or ring or whoop. I think a lot of people use those devices, but I don't think many people actually track it and let the data inform their lifestyle or decisions that they're making. So I think there potentially is a missed opportunity there, and I think you're doing it right, and I'm encouraged to hear the way you're implementing the metrics and data and something like that into your lifestyle, into your training, into what you're doing from a recovery standpoint, from a sleep standpoint. So anyway, I just wanted to touch base on that because I think it is particularly relatable to just the general population and people that might be listening to the podcast today. So I think the many things you've tried with optimizing performance and getting you ready for matches and being out there on the court is good experiences, relatable experiences in ways that people can maybe listen and apply it to their everyday life too. So thank you for sharing all of that.
Of course, yeah. And there's a lot. I mean, you could just go on and on. But for me, the hardest struggle is the nutrition.
Hmm.
But, and I have so many friends who are like, hey, and I look back and I'm like, wow, like I would really should be a balloon with what I eat. And so I'm grateful. Like I have like this like bionic body in a sense. So I'm like, wow, like
I
I
mean,
shouldn't
you're burning a lot of calories too.
but I burn a lot of calories. But and I could honestly say I've never, and I'm like the clock is ticking, but I've never actually gone full force into the diet part to actually see the potential I could hit. And I feel like I could really improve everything: strength, speed, I mean, just stamina. Like, and I've had friends that was like, imagine if you actually ate clean, like consistently. They're like, luckily, I love to exercise. Like, I know there's people that like, they hate training, they hate the gym part, they hate the off court part. I love that. Like, I just love working out. But if I could implement the eating part of it and just eat, like I have friends that are so disciplined with their eating and then maybe they hate working out, but they're like, oh yeah, I haven't eat sugar in so many years or breads or whatever. And I'm like, I could not do that. They're very strict.
Yeah, yeah.
but I just know like performance wise, it makes such an impact. I mean, I've gotten better. I've come leaps and bounds from, growing up to understand the nutrition part. And a big thing for me is like cooking, staying home, because you never know. You can't really control what is in the foods when you go out and eat and
Mhm.
also the portions. And I've realized that like when I used to eat out all the time, and it's also, I think, goes back to the way I grew up. You're told to finish your plate and clean the plate. And so it
Mhm.
was tough because now I had to get out of that mindset of like, I don't have to gorge myself and finish
Mhm.
the plate, especially with the portion sizes being so big. But
Mhm.
that's just how we were growing up. You couldn't waste anything. And so you just were taught to eat everything, even if you're full, just
Mhm.
finish it. And I realized when I take a break and I don't eat out, or I split a meal or something with someone, I can get so full with just a smaller portion. And then my body adjusts to it. But the moment I go back to like eating a bunch, then get in this pattern of eating up. So kind of, like you said, it's just small changes, but being consistent, just being consistent with it. I mean, I think it back to like, I hated running and I never ran more than a mile and I hated it. And then I got in, I did it. And then someone asked me to do a 5K. I did it. And then I did a 10K. Then I did a half. Then I did a full. Then I've done
Mhm.
ultras. But it was something that I just never in my realm of thought that I ever think I would ever run. And people are like, how can you run that long for 6 hours? How can you just keep doing that? And it was weird because I'm like, yeah, I don't know, but I just built it up.
Mhm.
Just slow and steady.
Mhm.
So I mean, I encourage anybody in whatever level they are fitness wise, as if, it becomes, if you're consistent enough, it just becomes a lifestyle and it becomes
Mhm.
automatic. And it's
Yeah,
just
yeah.
astounding
It's
how
not
your
like
body
these immediate
molds.
changes, right?
Yeah. And like even just a couple weeks ago, I was on vacation and I wanted to wake up every morning and go to the gym just because I'm glad that it's become a need for me. My body craves it, which I
Mhm.
enjoy. But again, I don't think if I had this prolonged lifestyle of fitness, I wouldn't like that. Like I know I probably would have just been like, I'm on vacation. Who cares? Not saying I didn't pig out nutrition wise, but at least I feel, just like stretch zone. I crave the stretching. I crave the mobility. I crave flexibility. It's the same thing with the fitness and the exercise. I need to break a sweat. I crave getting my heart rate up. My body desires it in some aspect. So
Mhm.
it's just, small
We made
changes,
the
but
move.
it's consistency. Yeah, I need to move. And, I read so much about when people age and seniors and, the number one thing is mobility. They just become so sedentary. Or I'll see comparisons of people that work out and do strength training in their 50s, 60s, and 70s. And they're like upright, they're not hunched, they don't have the
Mhm.
walker. Of course, everyone's different, but you just see if you can put these lifestyle changes
Yeah, yeah.
early and you're
Strength
consistent. So I really,
training,
yeah, that's what
yeah,
I'm
from an
glad.
older perspective too. Yeah, that's
Yeah,
huge
I
when
I
it
see
comes
those
to like
and I
bone
see those
density.
things.
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
I'm like, which one do I want to be when I grow up? I mean, I always exercise. I feel like, but I'm like, okay, I need to eat good, because I see people that are 50, 60, and they're fitter than me, and I'm like, so I, I mean, same thing. I feel like a lot of it is what you feed yourself, not just physically, but socially. So I've gotten really big into curating my feeds on social media because it's so hard to get sucked in to whatever you see, whether it's good thing, positive or negative. So my feeds right now they're really fitness orientated, wellness orientated. So I see these people that are old and I really get inspired by people that are older than me
Mhm.
that look so fit and they're so mobile and they're doing amazing things and running races and doing pull-ups and push-ups like nothing. And so that inspires me
Yeah.
to be like, okay, the decisions I'm making now, probably even 5 years ago, 10 years ago, I mean, the earlier the better. You're building that foundation. And I always try to tell myself, when I don't want to work out or I feel like I have a lot of work, I'm like, okay, you can't put a price on health at
Mhm.
all. Or my gym that I pay, I feel like I'm paying an arm and a leg for, but I'm like, well, I'm using it, and it's convenient. But I'm like, okay, well, and I don't want to be one of those people where like something chronic pops up or I get injured and then you crave, or now it's more important your health, or you miss what it felt like to be have full range of motion with no aches or pains. I mean, I've been lucky my whole life. Even now I have that, like there's nothing hurting me and I can move freely, but I think a lot of people take it for granted.
Mhm.
And it's so easy, like you said, to just think of the now or the quick fixes and
Mhm.
of you don't think the long-term benefits. It's so easy, especially now with everything, the short-term shortcuts on the
Hmm.
losing weight and
Yeah,
everything.
and from
Yeah,
like that
you know,
nutrition or like exercise programming standpoint,
yeah,
you know,
and I tell people,
it's not gonna be quick. Like you said,
yeah,
it needs to be a slow progression to things, or else your tissues won't be prepared for the demands you're gonna place on it. Or the diet and nutrition
yep,
choices are gonna be hard to maintain in the long run. So
yeah,
making little decisions, little steps in the positive direction, making it a habit, making consistent. I think
a lifestyle.
these
Yeah,
are awesome things to bring up, and I love what you this would be kind of, my final thought, and then I'll give the floor to you to kind of for some final takeaways, but when you're just talking right then, you were saying, what are you feeding yourself?" And I like how you frame that in not just from the nutritional side of things, but just the world around you, you know, what are you
mhm,
bringing in? What are you letting bring in? And I think that that has a parallel to what you're talking about earlier from a performance standpoint with not focusing too much on the negative emotions or getting frustrated during a game or you know seeing what someone else does have an impact on you. You know, I think it all across the board that could be, you know, a good theme of the conversation today. Like, what are you feeding yourself? What are you letting in? You know, are you being too caught up on other people, what they may be doing, what they may be thinking about, or what they may be thinking of you specifically. So I think all these things are good things to acknowledge and lay down and be aware of. Hey, what are you letting in? What sort of thoughts are you letting in your head? What sort of things are you putting in your body? You know, I think that is important to be aware of, and I think I'm encouraged by the conversation. I think it'll be beneficial for the listeners to listen to today, and I'm grateful for anybody out there listening to the show, and grateful for you for being on today, Christian. So for now, I'll give you the floor to give any sort of final thoughts or takeaways from the conversation, or anything that you didn't get to bring up that you think you might want to have brought up before the discussion today. Of
yeah. I mean, of course, again, thank you for having me. This is fun.
course.
You know me, I'm a talker, so I like to talk. Fun.
I love that about you.
But yeah, kind of to piggyback off what you said, I've really focused, I mean, on everything again comprehensively on the lifestyle part. And you know me, I'm big on social media. Like I'm on it a lot. Not that I'm big myself, but I'm on it a lot and you see a lot of
I
stuff
mean, you're
and
pretty big.
I'm okay. But you know, I do a lot of my work through it, my marketing. So it's easy to get sucked into that world.
Hmm.
And I'm the first to tell people who see my stuff, and they're like, "Oh, you're living the life, and you're just traveling and eating and playing tennis." And I'm like, I'm the first to be like, "Hey, it's all a facade. It's all curated to show the best aspects of people's life. You know, take it with a grain of salt. You know,
Hmm.
everyone has problems, issues. Like everyone
Yeah,
has life.
yeah. Don't let it
But
breed
I try
comparison. Hmm.
yeah, I try well not to compare and I try to elicit positivity through my page and my feed and hopefully inspire people or change people or influence them in some positive aspect. But it's easy, even myself, I see this person's so fit or this person's in a different country every day. And, and I have to learn like, oh, what do they do? They're just like living the life and seeing, I'll see someone and then I'll scroll down on their feed and I see the photo of where they are, they posted today is the same photo from 3 months ago, and they're just recycling this content. And it made me realize like, okay, it can't always be like they're trying to stay relevant. They're trying to curate this certain lifestyle, especially now with AI. I mean, I could tell AI me, on a beach in the Caribbean and no one would know. I could just tag myself there. I mean, so you have to really just take things with a grain of salt and focus on yourself. People have a way of making extraordinary lives look ordinary, and people think that's the norm. Uh,
Hmm.
and it's so easy to be exposed to that every day. And sometimes, like for me, I've gotten into ruts where I feel like, okay, I'm falling behind because I'm comparing myself to this person and have to tell myself, okay, you're not, and it's my own journey, be better than I was yesterday. And the best comparison I feel like that I'll ever make is who I was the day before. It's like, what is my goal? Be better than I was yesterday, keep improving, being consistent, like you said, in every aspect of your life and not comparing and just thinking, okay, shaping the future ahead and thinking, okay, this is my journey. It doesn't have to look like anyone else's. And I think a lot of people can get lost in that in
Hmm.
whatever aspect of their life. And the model I live by is you can't add time to your life, you can add life to your time. And
Hmm.
I think a big part of that is the topics we talked about today. When I am fortunate to travel, I'm like, okay, I'm glad I'm healthy. I can hike this, I can swim this. I don't want to lose a quality of life. And a big part of it is again, it all roots from tennis being introduced to my life, but it opened up all these branches into health, wellness, nutrition, recovery, you know, the social component, like you said, talking to people at pickleball. I mean, that's a big drive is the social part of it. So
Hmm.
these other sports, it gives me a whole new social circle.
Yeah, true.
But just again, in a nutshell, everything has just stemmed from me. My seed was tennis. I think there's this different seeds for everybody on what roots into their life. Hopefully, it's something positive. But again, yeah, I just tell people find something you love positively and make the most of it. And again, hopefully, it branches into something that they can keep going for the rest of their life. I mean, I feel like the health wellness perspective, Stretch Zone, all these companies that promote health and wellness. And again, it's a lifestyle that I hope to continue, just to have a great quality of life. I mean, and I think I see both sides of it. Again, like I said, the background that I grew up in.
Hmm.
I have family members and they're always in aches and pains, going to the doctor and taking all these meds. And I think them too, like, hey, you know, try this, eat this, try doing, making these changes. But yeah, I mean, everyone's on their own journey, and I think everyone, it's so easy to compare, and I've learned that because I used to do that too. And I tell people it's your journey, it's no one else's. It's your timeline, it's no one else's.
I love it. I think those are some encouraging and helpful takeaways. So thank you for sharing. Again, very grateful for you being on the show today. And thank you for all you listeners who tuned in. Looking forward to catching you on the next one. God bless.